going the distance with local sports. This is the xSports Network.
Jack Davis Insurance, located at 201 West Gain Street in Lawrenceburg, has you covered through life's obstacles. Jack Davis specializes in group insurance for businesses and institutions of all sizes. With coverage for life, accidents, cancer, critical illness, short-term disability, dental, and vision, Jack Davis can customize a plan to meet every need. Now available Medicare plans for seniors. Contact Paige Davis at 931-492-9284 today for Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage, and prescription drug plan insurance. Serving Lawrence and surrounding counties since 1987, call the team at Jack Davis Insurance today at 931-242-5225.
Welcome back, discussing the amazing sports stories here in Lawrence County. We've talked about Loretto, we've talked about city of Lawrenceburg, also Summertown. Let's go back to that 76 team in Lawrence County. We talked about the football. What about the baseball side?
The baseball side, they were a state champion runner-up. They played in a state championship, and at that time, they only had two major pitchers, two pitchers that were carrying them, and one of them would throw 4 innings. His name was Tom Wilson, and the other one, Donnie Story, would throw 3 innings. The next day, Donnie would throw 4 innings, and Tom would throw the 3 innings. So they go all the way through the tournament with these two pitchers throwing, 3 and 4 innings apiece. And has some great players on that team. Ronnie Hartsfield goes on and plays at UT. Tom goes and signs with MTSU. I mean, and to really put it in perspective, Donnie, his son, later on comes to Lawrence County High School, and he is drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. So you see a tradition right there, starting right there with Donnie being in a championship game, and then his son being good enough to be drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Aaron could throw. He could throw left-handed, and he was a good pitcher.
Aaron, is he kin to Donnie?
It's his son.
Aaron, all right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's just, hearing, even back then, feeling like just 2 pitchers is almost unheard of.
Yes, it is really.
That's an incredible feat in itself.
It was. But, you go all the way back to Johnny Lyles and the Jones guy. What was Jones's first name?
Johnny
Jones. You got Johnny Lyles and Johnny Jones from a town of 95 people.
Yeah.
And both of those guys are drafted in the same year.
Yeah.
So, they're the ones that got this pro baseball in Lawrence County started off.
Yeah. Talk about that experience with being kind of that first part of the county that's like, hey, we're actually, being drafted by the big leagues. Go through all that story.
Well, I never thought about it that way, like being the first to get it started. But, hey, that's 2 lifetimes ago, 1967. Guys, come on. That's a long time ago. But, I was playing baseball at Bethel College. I was over there on scholarship, and we were playing in a tournament, and there was a bunch of scouts there. And they saw me playing and been watching me, and they come and made me an offer, and I said, I ain't going to do it. They kept on, and finally they ended up buying me a new car and paid for my senior year of college. So I said, hey, I'll give it a shot. But, I said earlier, sometimes you think, I'm not a bad ball player. I'm a pretty good athlete. Hey, I'm pretty good. I signed and put me on an airplane. They flew me out. I get to El Centro, California with the California Angels, and I walk out on the field. I look around, there's about 300 guys out there, and 299 of them is probably better than you are.
But tell them about one of your roommates that you're still friends with.
This guy called me. Which one?
You talking about Parker?
Oh, Dave Parker, yeah. I don't know if y'all ever heard of that. Hey, my other good friend, Ed Ott, just passed away this year. He was a catcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He just passed away. Mm-hmm. But Dave Parker's still living, but we stay in touch. But Dave, he was huge. He's bigger than he looks. He's about 6'7", probably weighed 250, and he could outrun anybody in the world. I mean, he could fly. He got the nickname Cobra in the outfield because, I mean, he struck from anywhere, but he was good. And we used to room together some when we traveled. And at one time in my career with the Pittsburgh Pirates, at one time, our starting nine players, not counting me, they were in the minor leagues. I sat there one day and watched, and 9 of them were starting in the major leagues for the Pittsburgh Pirates. The guys that I'd grown up and played with and made it. And I don't know. I just, Dave Parker told my wife one time, it's a little story. He looked over there and he put his arm around my wife and he said, that guy right there should have been in the major leagues with me. But he said the only difference between me and him, I knew I was going. There wasn't no doubt about it. And he kept second guessing himself. That's, Johnny Jones, one of the best catchers. He's a Johnny Bench type catcher. Guarantee you, he could catch with Johnny Bench. But the poor old boy, he's just like me. When they developed that slider, that sent me and him both home.
It's a tough pitch to hit.
We couldn't hit that major league slider. But Johnny was a super athlete. I mean, he was good.
And we had more really good athletes that came, out of Loretto. You had the Weathers, and then from Lawrence County, Tidwell. I mean, talk about some of those guys that, later on in Lawrence County history that they started making a name for themselves.
Well, David Weathers spent 29 years in the majors, and we're friends, and I was talking to him. I said, let me ask you something. Why didn't you try to put in that one more year and get 30? He looked at me and he said, hey, there's just not a big demand for a 30-year-old guy throwing 80 miles an hour.
But he was in a unique situation where he, as a relief pitcher, he was never going to pitch more than 2 innings.
Mm-hmm. Well, he never would pitch more than 1 or 2 batters.
Yes, and so he was in a unique situation, and that's why he could go so long.
When a manager said, I got to have this out right here, this is the out I got to have, he'd bring him in, get the out, tell him go take a shower.
Yeah.
It was great.
He could do it.
But that type of experience that you and Johnny Jones had, that's an experience that no one can even think about today. That so many kids dream about.
Yeah, Johnny went to the Washington Senators at that time. I think they're nationals now, mm-hmm. But he was drafted by them, and he played a few years with them in the minor leagues. And you take a little old guy, you take a guy from a little old town like St. Joe, Tennessee, they've never done a whole lot in his life, and all of a sudden you're on an airplane, they're flying you to Chicago O'Hare Airport, and you get off the airplane, you don't know what to do, and they tell you go over here, and they fly you into Davenport, Iowa, mm-hmm. and you get off on a little plane, and they have a limo waiting there to pick you up and put you in. You get you to the ball game. You get to the ball game at 5:30. The coach says, "Get in there and get dressed. You're starting shortstop tonight." And I mean, I didn't know. It was unbelievable. Just I don't.
Yeah.
Overwhelming if you don't know the truth.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah. Just like that.
But I will say, the second time up at night, I hit a home run, and I got the governor of Iowa was at the ball game, and he asked the coach for me to come out. He wanted to shake my hand, so he brought me out of the dugout, and I shook the hand of the governor of Iowa.
See, experiences that you can only dream about.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
We got several kids that have come through this county that have been drafted into the big leagues.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a
Clint
lot.
Wright, who's coaching at the high school right now with the Atlanta Braves. Stephen Schultz, also with the Atlanta Braves. We got several kids that have been drafted, and I know I'm leaving some folks out. It's just amazing that the quality of baseball that's in this area right here, and the quality, that our coaches are putting out there on that field.
Yeah, I know you're talking about the Weathers, but now Ryan, he went straight out of high school.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't even attend college. He didn't go to the minors. He's right out of high school in the major leagues now, guys.
But Ryan began playing pro baseball about age 6.
With his dad.
With his dad, yes.
In Cincinnati.
He got to traveling around playing pro ball with his dad.
Yeah.
He started
dragging the bat, couldn't even carry it out on the field.
But he's a tremendous athlete, not just baseball. He can't just throw that baseball. He can shoot that basketball as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he carried them, and they won the state championship when Ryan was a senior, then playing basketball at Loretta, and he dominated them. I don't know. I think he was the most valuable player that year. He
Tremendous athlete.
They were,
Yeah.
and his mom, Kelly, she was All-American at Belmont University in basketball. So
She could probably beat them all in basketball.
she could probably beat all the girls.
That was that year with Debbie White, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that was.
Jennifer White. They had some Jennifer White.
They
from
can play.
Loretta. She played LSU, starting guard at LSU.
So you just have this athletic family from the get-go, and it's
Everywhere.
like your kids are going to go somewhere with this for sure. And I know we mentioned Ryan Weathers, but also his sister's still playing down there at the University of Alabama and just doing
Carly doing great.
Yep, doing great down there. You mentioned St. Joe, and I know we kind of there's really not a lot of history in regards to tournaments or championships, but the stadium I heard is something that everybody kind of would remember.
St. Joe built a ball field one time. They had all these. They started the Little League program, and they had so many kids from other communities around, like Iron City, West Point, St. Joe. They didn't have no place to play, so they built this big ball field, and they built a massive stadium. I mean, it's like a AAA stadium now. It's big, out of wood. They just built it, and people started coming from everywhere. They want to play, and it was just they had some great athletes. Both of my two brothers played on their team, and hey, they had some good play. Old Sam Ezel, old Sam, I played with him. I got a picture of me and him on my phone. Here's all these men's league, and this little young teenager. I mean, I was 14 years old, and I was starting third base for him.
Well, you mentioned, I think, the Yankees had a game there, right?
Let's see. The Yankees signed a pitcher from there. He was played there at the St. Joe Stadium.
Yeah.
And the Yankees had a tryout, and then they signed him, and he was a pitcher. They called him $1 million arm and a 10-cent brain.
And Mr. Smotherman, who used to be the director of Murray, Ohio, he played in the Yankees organization.
Yes, he did.
He was in the Yankees organization. So baseball is something around here that's been, the quality of baseball has been pretty good around here.
Lawrence County has been blessed with a lot of good athletes, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
They say Cromer roomed with Mantle, didn't he?
Mickey Mantle. Yes, they were good friends, and he roomed with him.
Yep. All right, we're going to take one more break, and then we'll come back, and we'll just kind of capture any other memories that we just have of this amazing sports history here in the Lawrence County area. We'll be right back after this.
Jack Davis Insurance, located at 201 West Gain Street in Lawrenceburg, has you covered through life's obstacles. Jack Davis specializes in group insurance for businesses and institutions of all sizes. With coverage for life, accidents, cancer, critical illness, short-term disability, dental, and vision, Jack Davis can customize a plan to meet every need. Now available Medicare plans for seniors. Contact Paige Davis at 931-492-9284 today for Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage, and prescription drug plan insurance. Serving Lawrence and surrounding counties since 1987, call the team at Jack Davis Insurance today at 931-242-5225.
At Flora Mid-South Realty, we pride ourselves on our family values, professional service, and a deep local knowledge. With a small town feel and a personal touch, we're here to help you navigate the real estate process with ease. Whether buying, selling, or renting, you can trust us to guide you every step of the way. And don't forget to catch Flora Rockstars, our live podcast every Tuesday morning at 8. Flora Rockstars, rocking the real estate news and all things local. Flora Mid-South Realty, your hometown real estate experts.
Welcome to the newly remodeled Brass Lantern. For over 30 years, we've been serving delicious food to excellent people. Brass Lantern takes pride in authenticity, serving fresh, homemade food to please any member of the family. From mouth-watering to one-of-a-kind steaks served with gourmet marinade, to salad with our signature honey mustard dressing, specialty fruit tea, drafts, and much more. Our food is always prepared daily. Whether you come in with friends or family, you'll appreciate that fresh is better.
This is the xSports Network.
One of the things, this is a Athletic Directors Association.
Yeah.
They keep me in clothing, by the way.
Yeah.
I have just been inducted into their Hall of Fame
Were you? Okay.
this week.
Okay.
I go Sunday to Knoxville for the induction.
Congratulations.
Athletic Director, Hall of Fame. You know what that means, right?
What?
You're old.
Yeah.
And before you die, we're gonna give you another. We're gonna give you another piece of paper.
Don't take a clock. Don't do a
I
clock.
don't want
Don't do a clock.
I want a wristwatch.
Take your grandfather's clock.
But they, the TIAAA, which
That's
is
good.
the Tennessee
That's great.
Interscholastic Athletic Administrator,
Yeah.
You got to tell that.
We tell that, yeah.
is
No, you tell it.
and I
Yeah.
do it Sunday. Sunday at I don't know what time, 3:00 I think, is their banquet time, and so I go to Knoxville this week.
That's great.
Congratulations, buddy.
Congratulations.
Well deserved.
25 years, longest AD in the history of the school. Nobody stays athletic director for 25 years in any school. Nobody. You can't do it. Now, you know how many Friday nights, Tuesday nights, basketball, how many nights I've been away from my family?
Oh, yeah.
Bunch.
Think about it for a second.
It's a lot.
38 years I did that.
Yeah. Yep.
38 years.
Wow.
So I don't go to a whole lot of games anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
I did my tour of duty. I did my tour
you
of
did.
duty.
Yeah, you did your tour.
I
Yeah.
did my tour of duty.
Your tour of duty.
I did my
Yep.
tour of duty.
We rolling? We're good? All right. All right, starting it back up in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody. Last segment here, talking about just any other memories that just come to mind here for the Lawrence County sports aspect. But before we go to that, congratulations, Mr. Weathers, on being inducted into the TIAAA Athletic Director Hall of Fame.
Thank
I
you.
heard that, and that
Thank
is
you.
a absolute amazing feat.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead and talk about that.
Well, the third I go over there on Saturday night, and they're going to do this banquet on Sunday, this Sunday. So I'm excited about it. Really, the award means that you're just old. And before you pass away, we're going to give you another sheet of paper. You know, but I was fortunate enough when Mr. Dunn hired me as the athletic director. He told me, he said, you're going to get involved in the state organization and the national organization and athletic directors. And I said, okay. And there was a board member job came open that year that I became in 92 when I became the athletic director, and I went on the board. And so I was a board member, and I was president and vice president for 2 years each. I've been on that board the whole time I was athletic director for the 25 years that I was athletic director. So I was pleased to be able to do that, but I wouldn't have been able to do that if he'd not said, you are going to. You know, we're going to make sure that you're involved in the state organizations. And to do that, you know, it costs a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, traveling all over the country. They have a December banquet every year, a December conference. Usually it's on one of the coasts. It's on the west or the east coast. So you got to fly out to there and, spend, it's in December. So that's right before Christmas when basketball is hot and heavy. So you miss some time there away from your family and what have you. But it's an honor for me to be able to receive that. I've made so many acquaintances across the state of Tennessee, from Memphis up to Kingsport. There's so many friends I've made in that board, and I'm humbled by that award.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Not only is he well deserving of that, hey, he would have been a pro baseball player, like he said, if he hadn't broke his leg. He was one of the best first basemen I've ever seen in all my career. He was good.
Well, thank you, John. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Mr. Dunn in 1980 told me, he said, you need to go to work with me. And I said, okay. Doing what? He said, teaching and coaching. I said, no, I'm not working with no snotty-nosed kids. So I told him no, and he said, no, you be in my office in the morning at 8 o'clock. I said, I just became the principal at Kaufman, and I need you to help me. I said, I'm not doing it. He said, yeah, you've got to give back what was given to you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So you've got to give back into this community, back into the kids that was given to you. Think about the number of people that sowed into your life and the things that you know and the things that you've experienced, and you can pass those to someone else. And I thought, nah. But the next morning at 8 o'clock, I was in his office. Yeah. And when I got there, he showed me a pay scale. At that time was, so he handed me a pay scale, and I looked at it, and I said, well, that's not too bad. I said, I have a real good job right now. But that's not too bad. And he said, now that's for the month. I was making that. He showed me per week.
Per week, yeah.
But that was 38 years I spent in education. I wouldn't do anything else again. I mean, I have so many great memories, so many great kids that I've coached, that I've worked with. Kids today that are just doing tremendous things, doctors, lawyers, business owners. I mean, just, his son played for me, Andy, just to see these guys, and hopefully you sowed something into their life to make them a success in what they're going to do. Everybody's going to turn pro after college. Yeah. But it may not be in the big leagues, may not be in the NFL or the NBA. They're going to turn pro in something. Yeah. And it's going to be a career.
Exactly.
And so hopefully all the years I spent in there, I sowed something into some of these guys' lives.
Yeah.
Well, I think you did.
You have.
You're very
I'm going to have to bring
respected.
this up. I do, of course, I do insurance for the school system. Yeah, he was always with me, and he was always together with the donuts.
I always told Jackie to bring an extra box. Whatever you bring an extra dozen, because and just put those on my desk.
Hey, since this segment is just opened up to talk
just
about
open up,
different things. There's a guy we need to talk about. His name is Elmer Brown. There's so many stories that you could teach. Elmer was an educator his whole life, so he was a teacher.
Yes.
And but he was also a referee and an umpire in baseball. And I'm going to tell this one story. Jonathan and myself and Elmer and my best friend Tim Williams, who's no longer with us, we were calling the Babe Ruth State Tournament over in Deckard, Tennessee. Elmer was calling behind the plate. Johnson was at first base. I was at third base. Tim was at second base. And Elmer was having a rough game. The fans were booing him and getting on to him. There was a big old fire screen around behind. And this huge fella got up there, bigger than huge. And he put his claws up in that screen and he started cussing Elmer and shaking, and the lights and the outfield was shaking. Elmer took his mask off and turned around. He said, hey. We're not going to have any more of that propane language. And he looked at Elmer and he said, well, what are you going to do about it? Elmer said, I'm going to throw you out of here. He said, you ain't man enough. Elmer said, Well, might not be, but them boys out there's big enough.
He like to got us in trouble. Speaking of that, Wendy also was a TSSAA basketball official, and he and Tim and Elmer would travel together to these games. And they were coming back from Pulaski one night, and it was in Elmer's car, and they had a flat tire. And so they said, Elmer, get up in there and get that spare tire out. So they did. Tim put the spare tire on, handed him the flat, and said, put it back in there, Elmer. Said, we don't want it rattling around. So when Elmer got up in the trunk to put the spare tire back, they locked him in the trunk. They rode Elmer all the way back from Pulaski, locked in the trunk. They were always having some kind of little get-together like that all the time. He and Wendy and Tim were always calling each other.
Yeah.
And one on the basketball end with Tim, Mr. Dunn was coaching the boys at E.O. Kaufman. And we had a kid that wore number 45, and his first name was Jay. And he said, we was playing this team, and they had a guy that wore 45. And so this guy was he was a big old football player, wearing our number 45 out. And I'm helping Mr. Dunn coach these boys. And Mr. Dunn jumped up, and I screamed at Tim, said, Tim, come on, 45 is killing us. He's wearing us out down there. He's abusing us. Said, we're almost ready to file assault and battery charges. He said, hey, I got it. So we go back down on defense, and we hadn't even set up on defense yet. And Tim blows his whistle. He said, and we wore blue uniforms. He said, blue 45. Tim looked at Mickey, and Mickey looked at Tim, and he said, what? He said, you told me to call something on 45, and I did. So that's the kind of refereeing that we had.
I got old Mickey one time. He was coming unglued, and I stuck him with a technical. He looked at me, he said, I deserved it. A few minutes later, back then, you could get 3 technicals before you got thrown out of the game. And a few minutes later, I come down, he jumped up, and he screamed something else out, and I stuck him with a second. And I walked over to him, and I said, that's 2. You want the third one? He said, no, sir.
Officials, I mean, we've had some great officials come through Lawrence County as well, some really, really good officials. I mean, referees and all that, they get a hard time. I never gave referees a hard time. I coached girls basketball for 7 years and only got 1 technical foul. And that was at the time when you couldn't stand up. No, you couldn't, unless the between quarters or on timeouts, the only time you could stand up. And so we're pressing, and my friend David Laws from Manchester, he's calling the ball game, and we're trapping. We're down 6 points. We're trapping. Boom, we get a trap. Boom, make a layup. We're down 4. Trap again. Boom, layup. We're down 2. They make a pass, and it comes right over my head, fixing to go into the stand, so I stand up and catch the ball.
Yeah.
Well, David is standing right beside me. He looks at me, and I look at him, and he says, I got to stick you because you're standing up. I said, no, you don't. And he said, yes, I do. So, well, I've got the ball. So he sticks me, gives me the timeout sign.
Yeah.
So I get stuck. That's the first technical I ever got and the last one I ever got. But it was because I stood up and caught the ball, kept it from going into the stand. So I put it under my arm, and I said, I'm fixing to earn this one. And so he said, well, go ahead and get it over with, but be quick. So in that day, officials had a pretty good sense of humor. You could talk with them because you were friends. You shook the hand at the end of the game regardless of how it came out.
Hey, we used to go over to Bob Hamlet's house. He coached Lawrenceburg. All of the officials would all work a ball game around in different counties, and by the time we'd get back into Lawrenceburg, it would be 11:30 at night. Well, we would gather at Bob Hamlet's house to have a cold glass of lemonade and talk about everything that was going on. And not only is the official, Coach Staggs would be over there. That'd be different coaches, but I don't see how Lane would put up with all this. She'd go in the other room. His wife would just leave and go in another room, but we'd sit over and they used to be like that. Nowadays, I don't think it's like that anymore.
No. There were a few umpires that I remember back when I played through high school with that, because I coached a little bit after I graduated just to continue to help out with the team, and there were still some umpires when this was 2011, 2012, 2013, where same thing is like that. You have a good relationship, and that they were very good-hearted men, and very rarely did you end up having an umpire that was just seemed like he had an out for anybody. Most of them were still very kind.
We try. You never go into a game going to say, "Hey, I'm gonna stick it." They don't do that. They don't do that.
Yeah.
They try to be as honest as you can.
Yeah.
Hey, one more quick story about old Elmer. Shootiste. Have you ever heard of Shootiste? Nashville Shootiste. One of the greatest baseball Babe Ruth programs in the United States, I guess.
Yes.
This is unbelievable. They were down here playing in I don't know if it was Southeast Regionals or what
Probably
it was.
was.
There's a major tournament, and Elmer was calling third base, and Shootiste was on the third base side, and I was behind the plate, and the Shootiste manager's notorious for really chewing you out. Well, he got on to Elmer, and Elmer went over there and threw him out of the ball game. And he walked over and he called us in a meeting. He said, "I want to protest this ball game." Elmer says, "I don't think you want to protest it." He said, "I do want to protest it." He said, "Well, that's okay, but my daddy and his daddy is the protest committee." He looked at us. He said, "Then I won't protest." He went back to the dugout.
I can remember the umpire when I was playing at MTSU behind the plate, and I don't know what happened, but the pitcher threw the pitch in there, and he said, "2." But there wasn't no 2. It was the first pitch of the bat. And I turned and looked at him, and the catcher turned around and looked at him and said, "2 what?" He said, "Too close to call." Throw me another. So you get umpires like that sometimes too. He said, "That's 2. But what? Too close to call." Too close to be a strike and too close to be a ball.
Hey, I did have a catcher one time. We getting ready to start a baseball game. He said, "Let me ask you something, Mr. Rump." He said, "Are you liberal conservative?" He said, "How big's a strike going to be?" I didn't need to know before I can tell my pitcher. And I said, "Well, I like to give them the corners if they can get them."
Yep. Well, before we wrap everything up here, just still open it up. Is there anything else that just kind of comes to mind? This is literally, I know the whole show has been about your stories and stuff, but this is y'all's segment to just talk about whatever y'all want to talk about.
Well, now we're talking about Coach Hamlet, Staggs, and Beecham and Ezel. We were playing Pulaski when I was a junior and Cone was a senior, and we were getting beat by a couple of touchdowns, and it was cold. And so we started going to the locker room underneath the bleachers, and before we went in, they said, "Take all them pads off your arms," because it was cold, it was stormy. We took all the pads off, and we went in and sat down. We were waiting for the coach to come in and talk to us, We sat there almost 15 minutes, we were all, and we didn't say anything. You didn't talk, you didn't just sit down and be quiet. And next thing I know, that door flies open, busted off the hinge. Coach Hamlet comes in there and kicks the door off the hinges, walks in there and looks around at everybody, doesn't say anything, and walks back out. We won with 2 touchdowns.
He made his point.
Made his point.
But as coaches, you have to do that sometimes. I remember John Stanford at MTSU one time. We were playing in the fall, and we'd gone down to scrimmage Motlow Junior College in Tullahoma. And we got down there. It's a Sunday afternoon. We got down there early and been playing all day, and it's almost dark. And he'd sent the bus driver over to McDonald's to get us a hamburger and a Coke. Well, game was over with, and we didn't play too well because we were not interested. It's just a fall game, didn't really matter, and we didn't get after it too good. So he told the bus driver to pile those hamburgers up over there and the drinks up over there. Well, he got to chewing on us and hollering and screaming at us, and next thing I know, he's standing in the middle of those hamburgers. He's stomping those hamburgers. And when he gets finished, he said, "Uh-oh, I guess y'all just need to get you a Coke. I need to teach y'all how to play hungry." We've been there since early morning, played all day, hadn't had anything to eat, and he just stepped on the best McDonald's hamburger we could have eaten. But he was that type of guy. We ran 60-yard sprints one day after a doubleheader, knowing we had a doubleheader next day, a conference game the next day. And he knew we were going to Murray, Kentucky, and we were going to go up to Land Between the Lakes and spend the night up there. So he So we're going to run till dark 30 is what he said. You know, he always dark 30. We're going to be here till dark 30. Well, we ran 60-yard sprints before a conference game because we got beat by Hope College out of Michigan. And he said, y'all got 30 minutes to get back here and get on that bus or I'm going to leave you. Nobody said a word on the bus to ride all the way to land between the lakes. And the next day we beat Murray like they stole something.
Well, these are just so many just fantastic stories. And, you know, as an outsider, you know, coming here and just experiencing all these stories, you know, it's as fantastic for me to learn about the history of Lawrence County. I knew of some, you know, big names like David Weathers coming from this area, because I do remember vaguely watching him pitch toward the latter part of his career. So I knew at least some of the history that was from here, but just to embrace all of it and understand it, that's just, I mean, it's been an honor for me to be able to hear all your stories, and this has just been an absolutely fantastic time. And I know that, you know, we could literally sit here all day and just keep going and going and going.
One of the things you're doing with the Hall of Fame, the Lawrence County Hall of Fame, where you're selecting folks from each end of the county and in the middle, you're selecting folks that are well-deserving, and if you keep that going and keep that going and keep that going, I think that's going to be something that everybody will be able to at one day enjoy a building with the history of athletics in Lawrence County.
Yeah,
tremendous.
I think it's an awesome idea that you got.
Great idea.
Yep, I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic, and hopefully we can see that, you know, pretty soon across the area.
You know, you see the big names in sports and all that, but you know they got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
and just like right here in Lawrence County, you know, they got to start.
Yep.
And that's what we're proud of. That we got so many kids right now. It's in Little League, well, not Little League, but you know, Babe Ruth and playing. We got a lot of kids in Lawrence County, and you know, if we live, you may live long enough one day to see one of them kids grow up, be a star.
I hope so. I hope so. Exactly. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. This is, again, like, it's been an honor to be able to host this and hear all these stories, and just absolutely just a fantastic time. I hope you guys at home also enjoyed this as well as much as we did. Thank you for joining us here on the xSports Network.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the xSports Network.